Yo, Darius BRITT here. Today we're talking about the different types of film directors. Now this is just an observation, this isn't scientifically proven, this isn't a category system recognized by the film industry or anything, but in my opinion there seem to be four different main types of film directors. The auteur or the writer-director, the visionary director, the actor's director, and the poet. Some directors seem to bounce from one category to the other throughout their career. Some directors stay in one category the entire time, but there definitely seem to be four distinct types of director. The auteur or the writer-director, for instance, their strongest suit is in the writing. They tend to write and direct scripts. They tend to have a history in writing that they bring to the directing. Their movies tend to stand out for strong plotting or strong dialogue. These directors usually tend to be very connected to the words on the page or to the script, and not as forgiving of an actor when they're having trouble with it. They'll typically conform the actor to the dialogue. So if the actor's having trouble saying a line or something, the writer-director type's going to be like, well, this is my dialogue, let's figure out a way to get you to say the dialogue right. Some examples of this type of director are Quentin Tarantino, Ingmar Bergman, Charlie Kaufman, Shane Black, Woody Allen. If you tend to think up cool stories in your head all day and generally only prefer or generally only have an interest in directing films that you write yourself, then you're probably a writer-director. Or if you have a stronger inkling to write something and then you only want to direct it because you don't want somebody else to step in and direct what you wrote and screw it up, you're probably a writer-director. The actor-director type loves to work with actors, and actors love to work with these type of directors. They tend to pick projects or scripts that are based on strong characters or very performance-heavy content. These directors typically have a history in acting or in theater. They used to do a lot of acting in front of the camera, and then they put the director's hat on, or they just have a genuine interest in acting, or they're just very interpersonal people and they like working with actors. These type of directors tend not to be married to the script because their main interest is powerful acting. So for instance, if an actor is having trouble with scripted dialogue, the actor-director is more inclined to change the line or throw the line out altogether in favor of something that's going to yield a better performance for the actor. And it's not uncommon for the actors-directors to, throw out entire scenes and improv those scenes, or to shoot movies that are like 50 or 60% improv, because their whole process is geared towards getting strong performances out of actors. Some examples of actors-directors would be Mike Leigh, John Cassavetes, Sidney Lumet, Clint Eastwood, George Clooney, Ben Affleck, Sean Penn. If you really enjoy working with actors, or you have an extensive background with acting or working with actors, and you're thinking about, becoming a director, more than likely you're going to be an actor's director. Their films aren't the prettiest, but that's because that's not their main focus. They just get a good cinematographer who can, compensate for their lack of interest in making it the prettiest, so they can just work with the actors. The visionary directors tend to stand out for their visual style or technical prowess. Everything is about the looks with these guys. Great cinematography or great visual or special effects or great production design, and usually when they start their careers off, it's in those respective fields. Someone who's heavy into cinematography, well, usually they started off as a cinematographer before they put the director's hat on. Somebody who's heavy into production design started off as art directors, before they put the director's hat on. Films that tend to be just special effects or visual effects smorgasbords, well, the director was in the visual effects or 3D animation or something like that before they put the director's hat on. So it's easy to see like where their career fields were before they put the director's hat on, because it shows all over their films. Examples of visionary directors would have to be Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott, George Lucas, James Cameron, David Fincher, Peter Jackson, Zack Snyder, and Tim Burton. If you absolutely love cinematography and you're heavy into the tech side of moving the camera, and you tend to pick projects that give you an opportunity to shoot really beautiful vistas and locations, telling the story with dollies, jibs, cranes, yada yada yada. Or if you're heavy into the visual effects or special effects side of it and you tend to pick projects that let you use a lot of special effects to tell a story, or if you're heavy into the set decoration or production design side of it and you tend to pick stories or projects that give you the opportunity to do period pieces or tell a story with elaborate costumes or set designs, then you're probably in the visionary director category. And then there's the poet. These type of directors tend to approach storytelling and filmmaking from a more experimental standpoint. It's very right brain, very artistic. They make films that challenge story structure, challenge reason, tend to be very philosophical, very ambient. They rely heavily on music or just visual communication, but not in the most traditional way. They experiment, they play with things. They play with the structure, they question everything, and they work off of instinct generally. They tend to break a lot of rules, and they make surrealist films, provocative films, extremely polarizing films. Pretty much any film that challenges the status quo probably came from a more poetic type filmmaker. Almost, but not always. Oftentimes, films made by these filmmakers have a lot of rewatch value to them, as in you have to watch the film several times to really understand what's going on or really get all the layers that have been built into the film. Some examples of poetic filmmakers would be Lars Van Trier, David Lynch, Gaspar Noé, Nicholas Winding Refn, Terrence Malick. If you don't really have an interest in the classical way of telling a story and you really want to just experiment with film, you think more along the lines of metaphor and symbolism, and you like to use visual metaphors everywhere, or if you just want to communicate really abstract ideas, or if you just make films purely on instinct, then you might be more of a poet type filmmaker. Myself, I'm really more of an actor's director. I'm really comfortable with working with actors and getting performances out of them. I tend to pick my projects based on, strong characters, something that I can get a strong performance out of an actor with. I also like acting, and I do a fair amount of acting, so I think that's part of the reason why I'm comfortable with working with actors and why I like working with actors. I've made sure that I'm really decent with writing, but again, I tend to write projects that are character driven or something that yields strong performances for actors. That's more my forte. I'm pretty comfortable with a camera, but those two are definitely my strongest suits. If you could define what type of director you are, what type of director would that be? Or maybe you have your own observations and you have your own categories of directors, and if so, what are they? Leave them in the comments section. So that's it. That's all I got for you. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like or subscribe. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments section or tweet me or Facebook me. And that's all I got for you. Deep it out. Yo, Darius, BRITT here. So today we're talking about the importance of getting your work test screened. So first we'll talk about why and how you should get a test screening, and then I'll share my test screening experience with our feature film.